So when I say realistic, I mean realistic for you where you are in the journey. That would be the thing I would say to you. Check in with your goals, and furthermore, check in with why you're actually setting them the way you're setting them.
And I think that that's a much more, for lack of better phrasing, realistic road that's not only good for you, but he did make it to the major leagues. So the dream came true, but it didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen because when he first picked up a bat, he's like, I'm going to be the best baseball player in the world.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode, number 1019, Expressing and Chasing Your Dreams with Your Partner. Today, for episode number 1020, Can Your Goals Be Too Big? So, as Alan and I make it further and further into this journey, I look back on either some of the advice I've been given, some of the advice I've seen online, and some of the advice, transparently, that I've given to other people, and I reflect on that. And I think about, okay, from what I know now, from what I've learned recently, was that advice sound? Was that advice off? What would I change knowing what I know now? So I was on a podcast the other day, and that's kind of how all my stories start now because I'm doing so many, but it really helps me have new awarenesses and gives me a lot of perspective. And somebody asked me, they said, are you of the belief that people should set these giant goals and not accomplish them, but understand that they'd be further along than if they didn't set the giant goal? Or do you think people should set more bite-sized, achievable goals? And I said, that's a great question, because if you asked me that a couple of years ago, my answer would be completely different. I said, I think it depends on how. So a couple things. And again, let me just preface it with this. When you see a social media post that says, if your goals don't scare the S out of you, your goals are too small, I don't agree with that. I think that's a layer that looks really good on social media, but when you dig into that layer underneath, it might not be applicable to you. It might not be applicable to most people. So this person asked me that question, and I said, let me go with this direction. I think that there's a couple different types of people. There's people who have 10 out of 10 level belief in themselves. They believe in themselves no matter what happens. So they could fail every day for the rest of their life. Alan is one of these people. And they're not going to lose any belief in themselves. Yes, I believe those people should set massive goals because they'll get further than they would if they just set small goals. And this is the important part, if they do not accomplish their goals, number one, it will not stop them from resetting a goal and trying again or continuing the journey. It will not hurt their self-worth directly. And it's really not going to change that much about them. They're going to take the lessons and they're going to keep moving on. Now, if there's somebody who has a lower level of self-belief, I think you're kind of setting yourself up for self-sabotage. If you say, you know what, my goal is to make $1 million this year, and you're currently making $75,000. If you get to the point where, number one, you're 6 months into the journey and you feel terrible about yourself all the time because you're not even close to where you think you should be, and it's hurting your self-worth, and then that makes you just turn it off completely and say, you know what, I don't even care about any goals anymore. That's not necessarily positive. If it hurts your self-esteem to the point where you start having negative views of yourself, that's probably not super positive. So the conversation I had with this person on their show was, I think it comes down to understanding your level of self-belief, understanding your capabilities, and understanding how you accomplishing and or not accomplishing your goals affects your self-worth. I said, until you have those three understandings, I think it's very hard to determine how big your goals should be. I went on another podcast recently, and the person said, the first thing I did when I hired a team was we had an open conversation about what I wanted this brand to look like. And she said, what are your BHAs? BHAG, yes, BHAG. What are your big, hairy, audacious goals? And she said, I don't know, like, where should I set them? And they said, like, the biggest thing you can imagine. And she's like, I had a lot of trouble figuring out what that was for me because I want it to be realistic and I don't want to just throw something out there so I stretch for the rest of my life. I want it to be something I can actually accomplish. And that was very appropriate for this episode and where we've been talking about. So I think at the end of the day, we started this podcast on the foundation of hyperconscious, which means acute awareness. And having acute awareness of yourself, I believe, helps you understand how you should go about most things, but this one particularly. When I did my first bodybuilding show, I wanted to win that. I did not set that goal as a stretch goal to say, well, even if you don't win, you'll be up on stage. No. I didn't do that to be up on stage. I did that to win. If I didn't win that show, that would have hurt my self-esteem. Where Alan did a show, his first show, and he didn't win, and then actually made him hungrier to do the second show. So in a way, the goal gave, which he did win. No, you did. But Alan and I are two very different human beings. It would have hurt my self-worth if I lost, 100%. It would have hurt my self-esteem. It would have made me believe in myself less. When in the opposite, it didn't affect Alan like that. So, you're going to probably get different advice from different people, usually because they're thinking about their level of belief, not your level of belief. And that's my goal in this episode, is to say, okay, well, if you have a level 2 belief, and there's nothing wrong with that, that is where I started for sure, probably lower, honestly, I don't think you should set a level 10 goal. I think you should probably set a level 3 or 4 goal, because it's something that you can actually get to or get close enough where it's not going to hurt your self-esteem and your self-worth drastically to the point where you won't set other goals. I think that's the biggest thing. And we've been talking a lot about goal setting and goal strategizing, but you really have to be aware of where you actually are. In terms of self-awareness, where are you on a scale of 1 to 10 with confidence? And how are you setting your goals in accordance to that? So check in with your goals from the awareness, or from the awareness and understanding of, okay, how confident am I really? And am I setting these goals because people are telling me I should set goals that scare me? I should make these goals things that I don't even think I can accomplish? Okay, let me check in with that. Are they too big? Are they too small? Do they feel just right? As your awareness raises, your abilities raise too. And I think setting goals is an ability, and chasing goals is a whole nother ability, but you have to make sure you're setting them. When I use the word realistic, I don't mean, in the grand scheme of things, realistic. What Alan and I are doing is very unrealistic. All things considered, statistically speaking, it's just unrealistic. That's fine, because our level of self-belief and self-worth is in accordance with that. Mine has been pulled that way. So when I say realistic, I mean realistic for you where you are in the journey. That would be the thing I would say to you. Check in with your goals, and furthermore, check in with why you're actually setting them the way you're setting them.
You remember that Will Smith, I think it was 60 Minutes. It's an older one. I watched a Steve Jobs 60 Minutes recently, and I remember the Will Smith one where he said something along the lines of, why would I ever have a plan B? Because it takes away from plan A. And we've talked a little bit about that on this episode, but he says this. He says, why would you ever be realistic? You have to believe that something different can happen. And I now understand, and I've read Will's book as well, he has ridiculous self-belief, man. It's like very high, right? And I always resonated with that 60 Minutes episode. And, there's a lot of Will Smith quotes out there, and that's one of the big ones, is like, why would you ever set realistic goals? Like, go do something bigger. Yeah. And then you have the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing of like, think big. Like, why would you ever, But now I understand Arnold Schwarzenegger's self-belief is very, very, very high.
Sure.
And statistically, and I do understand this. This is my new understanding. I always resonated with those quotes because, and I'm just going to say this, I don't want to make this about me, but I do want to make this point. Kev, I've set a lot of goals in my life. Okay? I have. I've never set a goal that I didn't really believe I could achieve. Never. When I said that I wanted to get straight A's in high school, I knew that I could do that. Even though I failed, I knew I could do it. I got 189 in honors English. Everything else was. And then when I said I'd go to WPI, like I never didn't believe it. Now, but that's why I don't set goals like I'm going to beat Michael Phelps at swimming, because I know that that's not doable for me. And so I think that the reframe here is try to set a goal that's accurate, that's as accurate as possible. Because what if the goals that I set were actually accurate? I mean, when I said that I wanted to get my pro card, I wanted to win a fitness show, I didn't win the first one, but I did win the second one. So It's not like an unrealistic, impossible goal, but I would never set a goal to be on the Olympia stage in bodybuilding because I know that's not doable for me. That's not an alignment for me. That would take me outside of my core values. I think that when you set goals, you have to have very high self-awareness. But the weird duality of this is, Kev, I remember your very first financial goal on this journey was $2 million, a net worth of $2 million. Mm-hmm. And, we smile and we laugh at that a little bit now because you're pretty much, on your way there, if not already there in some ways. But now you realize how small that was in comparison based on our current trajectory, right? So we're coming up on $500,000 in revenue and we're going to double our revenue. Our goal is to double our revenue. And the impact that we're going to have is going to require a little more than $2 million, for sure. Right? But at the time, that was a stretch for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because at the time you were making six figures, but $2 million seemed like a stretch. And then eventually it became, I think, 70, and then you went up from there. I think that for people who do struggle with self-belief, I now do understand that it is better to go incremental. Mm. And this is what I wrote down. The goal has to be big enough to excite you, but not so big that it crumbles your self-esteem.
Yeah.
And I think that, there's a lot of neuroscience that Stephen Kotler talks about regarding the challenge skills sweet spot and 4% outside your current comfort zone and how some people can handle 40%, that kind of thing. And in the interview where we interviewed Stephen Kotler, he said Alan might be the type of person who needs the 40% just to ignite his potential. And I think of Emilia with that because Emilia is always really, really behind. We recently were cleaning out one of her closets in her office, right? We stumble across this whiteboard, and on the whiteboard is all of her goals from like a couple of years ago. All of them are achieved. Every single one of them. Like check, 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 like all done. And I'm like, okay, well, obviously we need to, do another whiteboard. Now her like true north goal, her end game goal, to be the most positively impactful female leader she can possibly become. That's one of those infinite games, but the finite games along the way need to be, I think, more incremental. And so if you're out there right now and Will Smith does resonate with you of like, why would you ever be realistic? Because honestly, that did always resonate with me. Yeah. Why would you? No, like, of course you have to believe something is possible that's never been done before. But if you do have low self-belief and you don't really believe in, this is what's going to happen. Let's say you were to set a goal to have a net worth of, one of my clients has a goal to have a net worth of $120 million. And I told her, I said, listen, just transparently here, I want to help you understand what is probably going to come with that. Like, you're going to work weekends every weekend for the next 25 years. There's not a lot of wiggle room. Like, I hope you understand, like, it sounds really cool to say I want to have a net worth of $120 million. And that's totally doable. It's a doable thing, but it's going to require like a ridiculous amount of sacrifice. And if you don't know that, you're probably going to be setting yourself up for failure. So on this episode, this is the story that I had. I have a client who is very, very wealthy. And she told me early on in the coaching that she wants to have Brené Brown level impact. If you don't know Brené Brown, her work has really had a massive impact. She's a best-selling author. She's been on different TV shows. And there's actually one thing that I'll recommend right now. Brené Brown, The Power of Vulnerability on Audible. It's a 6-session audio series that is like one of the best pieces of work I've ever seen, honestly. But this person who's a client of mine, when she said that, I want to have Brené Brown level impact, I literally was like, okay, awesome. Like, let's start reverse engineering that and like, how are we going to do that? And, and I realized later, she's like, honestly, Alan, I don't want to grind anymore. Like I'm past the grind stage of my life. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, based on my awareness, this is a brand new business, right? You're not going to have Brene Brown level impact without like grinding for the next decade. I mean, it's possible, but it's not probable. And so here's what I've started to do with all of my clients, with all of the NLU team members, with myself. What is the goal that's going to excite you, that's going to ignite you, that's going to motivate you, but it's not going to cripple your self-esteem and your self-worth? Because, and more importantly, it's not going to create a lifestyle that you're going to be miserable. Because if the chances of you continuing to do something that you don't want to do or is taking you away from your family when family's a big core value, I think I have a more accurate understanding of how important it is to set goals that are super, super customized to you. And a lot of these blanket statements on the internet, and I know I've been guilty of that as well. You know, if you had asked me 5 years ago the importance of setting massive goals, I would have said 10 out of 10 important. Like, you have to have big goals. If you don't, you won't stretch. But I think a more accurate, in reflection, me growing in this capacity, what I would say more accurately now is this. Start with a goal that excites you, but it's not going to cripple you. Work hard towards that. And as you become more capable and you start to believe in yourself more, you got to up the ante. So if you're at level 2 for self-belief, set a level 3 goal. If you're at level 5 self-belief, set a level 6 goal. And then on top of that as well, I've also come to understand this. Not everyone can think 10, 20, 30, 40 years ahead. And that's a muscle that we all have in our brains, for lack of better phrasing, where, you know, some people can think, 50 years ahead. There's a lot of science behind this. Some people can only think a couple years ahead. And they hooked people up to fMRIs and they were imagining a stranger. We've talked about that in the past. If you're someone who can only think 2 years ahead, you're not going to be able to set goals that are $120 million net worth and then believe in them enough to actually do what it takes. So everybody play at the level they want to play at. If you the first time you ever played baseball, you were against the Yankees in the major leagues, you would think you suck at baseball. And that's not good for anybody. Versus one of our team members and dear friends was literally playing baseball for 25 years before he got to the major leagues. And I think that that's a much more, for lack of better phrasing, realistic road that's not only good for you, but he did make it to the major leagues. So the dream came true, but it didn't happen overnight. And it didn't happen because when he first picked up a bat, he's like, I'm going to be the best baseball player in the world.
Hey everyone, I'm Helen Baker from Melbourne, Australia. I'm an entrepreneur and a client of Alan's from Next Level University. I've had many business coaches in the past, and I can honestly say that Alan is seriously next level, and excuse the pun, but he has this unique ability to help you find a solution to your business problems using his intellect and his business modeling and his genuine, heartfelt desire to help you achieve your goals. I can be vulnerable with Alan, I can share anything and feel comfortable in his presence, knowing that at the end of our coaching sessions, I feel empowered to do incredible things. So if you're looking for a business coach, I highly recommend Alan, because his advice and his ability to coach you will be instrumental in achieving your success.
One of my favorite quotes, and you've heard me say this, is your reality becomes the parts of your imagination you hold on to and pour into the longest. But I always say there's parts of your imagination. Like, yeah, we made it as a podcast. That was one of the things that I held on to. But if I held on to playing basketball professionally or being a professional fighter or a professional rapper, everything would be different. And honestly, there are chances that I would not have made it. It's the interesting thing where, like, the blanket statements that we tend to take the most are the ones from the people who made it. Is that survivor's bias? Is that what that's called? The survivor's bias?
Yes.
So I was watching Shark Tank the other day, and they do like a recap, right? So one of the segments they do is like a recap of an old business that we invested in. This is where they were. This is where they are now. And one of the things that the person said was, and he said this at the end, yeah, we went from having, $180,000 in sales to $12.2 million in sales in the last 3 years. And at the end, they usually leave like a one-liner. And his one-liner was, if your goals do not scare you, you need bigger goals. And it's like, I understand what you're saying. But you made it. So it's different for you. It's like...
And what about the 94% of other businesses
like,
that literally...
What's the real advice, though? Like, if I had you behind the scenes, what would you say? You wouldn't say that. You would say something else probably of like, oh, make sure your self-awareness is high, or whatever it may be. So you just have to be very, very, very careful very careful with what you take advice from or what you allow to affect your decision making, because there's a lot of blanket statements out there. I said this to somebody the other day. They said, "Wow, I'd love to get to 1,000 episodes." I said, "No, you wouldn't." And honestly, if you do, awesome. But I said this to this person. I said, it's Wednesday at 9 a.m. I've already worked for 34 hours this week. It's Wednesday at 9 a.m. I'm on pace for 70, at least 70, right? And that's only in the week. That doesn't count the weekend. I said, that's what it'll take for you. If you want that, awesome. But you don't have to set a goal to get to 1,000 episodes and be where we are. That might be too big for you. It might be too big. It might stretch you too far. You might crack. Don't assume that you have to get what we have, because maybe that's not what you're meant to have. And it would be a disservice for me to just say, yeah, go set bigger goals that scare you so you can't sleep at night. Like, so that's not right for everybody. Some people operate really well. The visionaries, they operate really, really, really well. But when I set that net worth goal of $2 million, that was a stretch for me.
Isn't it fascinating to think back on that? Like that being a stretch? It's so wild.
Yeah, but I understand.
No, I do too. It's just really cool to be able to... What did I say when I saw that? Did I say that was too low?
I don't remember, probably. But now, what's interesting is I've said this many times. Like, yeah, my goal... Number one, yes, my goal is to have a net worth of $1 billion. I also want to donate through the business $100 million. That's one of my goals. But I also say this all the time. I've said this to you, Alan, behind the scenes. Like, look, if I end up at $750 million, it's fine. It's not gonna. It's not gonna hurt my self-worth if I don't get to $1 billion.
Literally,
right?
If you get 1/10 of the way there,
right,
you're still doing very, very well.
So that's my mindset is I'd love to be a billionaire because I want to be able to give back. I don't ever want to have to think of like, can I donate $100,000 right now? Can I afford that? I don't want to have to think about that. And if I have a net worth of $1 million, that's 10% of my net worth. I can't just donate $100,000. I'll be broke very quickly. So that's the main driver behind that. But if I don't get there, it's not like it's going to hurt my self-worth and make me say, oh, you know what, this whole thing was a waste of time. I wish I didn't do it. So it's just important. Imagine, this is my takeaway, imagine not only setting a goal, but understanding and knowing what would happen if you accomplished it and what would happen and what it would feel like and what it would do to you if you didn't accomplish it. That is a level of self-awareness where if you get to that, you are in much more control than you realize of your life and your future.
One thing, I know we got to go here. The question I wrote down, are my goals too big or too small? Where are you? Are you on the place where it's like, honestly, maybe that's a little too much of a stretch where it's really negatively affecting my confidence and self-esteem? Or are they too low where it's like, this is too easy? Because I do know there's some people there too that it's like, listen, I had one person in my life several years back where her goals were so low and she was so capable. And I remember thinking to myself, like, you're not stretching much. You're not really that challenged, right? It's the challenge skills sweet spot. So, and real quick, I'll say this and we'll go. The point of the goal, there's a lot more purpose behind goals than the result. And I'm not going to pretend that setting a goal and getting the goal isn't awesome, because it is. But whether it's the net worth of $1 billion for Kev, or it's, wanting to win a fitness show, what the point of a goal, the purpose of a goal is contribution. I remember Kevin, Bianchi, Emilia, and I are at an event in Florida that we deeply regret attending. I'm kidding. It ended up being a really wonderful week. But they said the purpose of business is making money. And I remember thinking to myself, like, no, that's not true at all. No. Imagine if Apple wasn't a business. If you have an iPhone, there goes a lot of the value that, imagine if Microsoft didn't exist. We wouldn't have these computers and we wouldn't be able to speak into your lives right now. The purpose of business is service. Whatever this purpose of business is for money is so crap. Money is necessary to grow a business, but the purpose of money and mastery and setting goals is to serve the world in a deeply meaningful way. Kevin and I one time, I know we'll go. No, you got to go, Kev.
Yeah, I do.
Kevin and I one time, we looked up the mission statement of Marlboro cigarettes because we wanted to learn. We wanted to learn, like, what have they rationalized, the purpose of their business to be? Because, obviously their slogan is not, I want to slowly provide a product that is so negative for people's health, right? But the point is this, the purpose of a goal is not to get the goal. And I know this is going to sound weird. Getting the goal is great. And I'm not going to deny that. I loved winning the show. I love that we're successful on the podcast. We don't have a goal to reach 1 million listens by the end of 2022 because we want just to have 1 million listens by the end of 2022. The lives that we're able to speak into, the impact that we're able to have, the growth and contribution that comes with that, the fact that Kevin and I have to learn and grow and stretch and be on these mics consistently, who we become as men, what's required of us as business owners, as partners, as individuals, as men, the contribution, all of those other reasons are why you set a goal. So not only can your goals be too big, they can be misguided. They can be inaccurate to what you really want. So when you set a goal, be very, very hyper-conscious, very acutely aware of what are the implications of this goal. Just like my client with the Brene Brown thing, it's like, I know that sounds awesome to have Brene Brown level impact, and I'm with it. Let's do it. But you also don't really want what comes with that. And that's okay. It's not just about goal setting and goal getting. It's about, there's go-getters and there's go-givers. I say be a grow-giver. You grow and you give and you grow and you give and you grow and you give. To Kevin's point about the charity thing, the purpose of these goals that we've set is so far beyond getting the goal. It's not even funny, and maybe we'll do another episode on that at some point. But ask yourself, are my goals too big or too small? And are they accurate based on what I really want to achieve?
Boom. Next Level Nation, July 12th. Save the date. Our 7th round of group coaching opens up. That is when we will be doing our first call. Group 6 just graduated. G6. It was wonderful. It was amazing. We learned so much, and we are just grateful for the opportunity to help so many amazing people. So if you want to get to the next level of your life and you're thinking, well, I listened to the podcast. I'm not ready for a one-on-one coach. I'm not ready for that. Maybe group coaching is a good fit for you. Alan, we have to go. Next Level Nation tomorrow for episode number 1021. Can you work smart without working hard first? Alan is probably very excited to that episode because I know that is one of his beliefs, and he likes the balance between the two, the harmonization between the two, as Alan would say. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family.
Please reach out.